So this has come up a lot, and I've only really learned about it in the last couple of years of people who are like, yeah, I was into grindcore, but we all loved the Get Up Kids. And I was like, we seem to be the emo band that hardcore kids are allowed to like. And I don't know what that is. Because we've been going back on our Patreon. Jim and I have been doing a podcast where we've been doing like deep dives into like each of our records and EPs and stuff like that. And when we were talking about 4 Minute Mile, it was like interesting to go back and listen to it because, you know, you're 18, 19 years old and it's a lot of like life-changing shit going on in your world at that age. You know, you're graduating from high school, and then like we started touring like right when we graduated from high school, basically. And I think that there's some sort of like, you know, those are themes that I think people in that age group can really like relate to. And it kind of like, we do have songs that are about relationships with, you know, like romantic relationships, but that doesn't seem to really be the primary focus. It's more about friendships. And maybe that is something that sets us apart. I don't know. We relearned 4 Minute Mile for this live stream that we did a while ago. And it's funny because like the vocals are notoriously bad on that record because we were children and we didn't know any better. And we made that record in 2.5 days. And it's just whenever relearning it, Jim and I give each other so much shit for the way, like there's the song called Fall Semester, and Jim like just goes like, you fly, like he sounds like Jeremy Enoch kind of, and I'm just like, you sound so stupid. And then he'll come back at me and he'll go, forgive me, and I'm just like, fuck you.
See, that's interesting that you say the vocals are terrible because I'm 39 years old now, and I listen to that record and I'm like, I wish I could sing like that.
You don't, though. See, here's the thing. This is what used to happen when we owned a recording studio. People would come in to work with Ed and they'd be like, we want you to make it sound like 4 Minute Mile. And he'd be like, no, you don't. Those songs are good, but you don't want it to sound like that. You want it to. And so if you watch our live stream, you don't miss the fact that the vocals are in key. I mean, you know, that they're not, you know what I mean? Like you don't miss the vocals. Like it just sounds correct. You just don't know that it's wrong on the record. I really don't think I don't think that record would have lost anything if I had been if we had recorded it 6 months later and I had been a stronger singer. I think it would have had the same energy. It just wouldn't have been so cringy for me.
You've been a touring musician since you're right out of high school, basically. Mm-hmm. Was there ever a point where you felt like you wanted to be done or do something else? Did you ever have another plan in mind?
No other plan. But I started being unhappy with the concept of touring around the time my kids were born, and I've struggled with it ever since then. I've been thinking about it a lot because I've always said that like I don't like touring, but I've never been away from it long enough to know if that's the case for real. And so this, you know, pandemic has kind of taken that away from me. And I'm kind of like, maybe I do miss touring. I don't know. And then now that my kids are older, it's kind of like, well, they don't need me as much, you know, maybe this is something that I'm more excited about, but I don't know. So in 2012 or 2012, I actually said I was quitting. I didn't want to do music anymore. And I went and worked on a farm. And I went and worked on a food truck because I'm really interested in cooking and farming. And, you know, it was during that like 6 to 9 month period that it was kind of like, well, I can't make a living $8 an hour as a farmhand, you know, with 3 kids. And so it's either like, okay, so if I want to be a farmer, I need to like do my own thing and really commit to that. And then I was just like, the thing that I learned about farming is that like farmers don't get breaks. You know what I mean? Like it's like,
yeah, you work while the work's there.
Yeah, it's a constant. And also that it's completely unappreciative. Like if you're going to buy an organic tomato from the farmer's market, that tomato should really, for how hard it is to grow it, it should cost $25. Like it's just, I don't know if you ever tried to harvest potatoes, but it's like backbreaking labor. So, yeah. And so I basically kind of went to this point of like, okay, so what about my career? If because music is my career, because I spent my whole life building it. What are the parts about it that I like? And what are the parts about it that I won't do, and what are the parts about it that I don't like, and how do I minimize those things? So it's basically like a work smarter, not harder sort of thing. And so that's what I've tried to do. I think everybody's kind of come to that conclusion too, especially the guys that have kids now, of just like, and we're in our early 40s. So it's like, I'm not sleeping on the floor of a van. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like,
yeah, those days are over.
Mhm.
Like, I value comfort now.
Mm-hmm.
So most people like leave music because they have to get a job that pays more. You left music and your job didn't pay as much as music. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. I mean, I guess so. I hadn't really ever thought about it that way. I mean, music became my career before I knew that it was. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of like we were young enough that it was just like, well, this is fun. Let's do this. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, I can either do this and make more money than I could working at the library, which is where I had been working, or I can go into a career working at the library. Like, that doesn't sound like as much fun as touring when you're 20.